Bruce Madison, and Susan Whitney, our town clerk. Our first order of business is to elect town moderator. And do I have, yes?
I would like to nominate Allison Grizz.
Allison Grizz, okay.
Second?
All in favor of Allison being our moderator, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
All right, Allison, thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. Can you all hear me?
No.
Is it turned
Can you
on?
hear me now?
Might not be on behind us.
How about now? It's not working. It's what? Oh. Sorry.
Bottom button, yep.
Right now. How about now?
That's
Right.
The on button works. Nice job.
Okay, let's get this party started.
All out.
So, welcome to town meeting. We're going to go through the articles that have been warned. We can only vote on the articles that have been warned. I'll read each article and then look to the floor for a motion and a second, and then we can discuss, and then we'll vote. Please state your name when you are speaking so that we can get accurate notes. So, Article 2 is, shall the voters of Sunderland authorize the payment of the personal and property taxes to the town treasurer in equal installments, with the payments to be in the hands of the treasurer by Wednesday, October 15th, 2025, and Wednesday, April 15th, 2026. Do I have a motion? Harriet Welter. Second? Virginia Dexter. Any discussion? All in favor of paying our taxes on those dates, please say aye.
Whoa,
Anyone
nice.
not in favor? Okay. That motion has passed. Article 3, shall the voters of Sunderland approve the sum of $70,000 to be added to the Highway Equipment Reserve Fund? Do I have a motion? Joe and what was the name?
Jared.
Jared. Last name? Beyond. Jared Beyond. First and second. Any discussion? I feel like we always get a question about the highway fund, equipment fund.
Well, this is equipment in here.
We need it.
Okay. Well, if I don't hear any further discussion, let's vote on Article 3. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone against, say nay. So moved. Okay, Article 4. Shall the voters of Sunderland approve the sum of $70,000 to be added to the paving reserve fund?
I'll make the motion.
Joe?
I'll second it, Rick Timmerman.
Rich Timmerman? Any discussion?
I don't see, Mark, that, do we have a idea what's being paid this coming year?
Bruce?
No, I haven't actually discussed it with him. I'm sure he has something in mind.
I couldn't hear
I'm
that.
sure he
I'm
has
sorry.
something in mind. I haven't really discussed it with him.
He hasn't stated where it is gonna happen in town.
No, actually, we have 158,000 now, and it was 230,000 for the paving we did this year. So we might have to wait until after July. So that might not happen this year.
State your name, please.
David Treasurer Dolphus. I just want to publicly thank our town highway department for the great job they do. You go to other small towns, the difference is obvious.
Any further discussion on Article 4? All in favor of Article 4, please say aye. Aye. Those against? Okay, that motion has passed, and I see that our legislative representatives have just walked in. So I am going to recess this meeting for a few moments so that Kathleen James and Rob Hunter can come up and give us a quick report, and then we will resume the meeting when they're done.
Everybody. Thanks for having us. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Great. So we are on the town meeting tour tonight, which is always actually really fun. We just came from Arlington. And then after this, we get to go up to Sunderland and, Sandy. And we've already been to Manchester, and anyway, it's a fun time of year to get out and see folks. So we left all of our handouts on the back table. We left our town meeting report, which is also posted online. Rob and I have a newsletter, and I hope folks have signed up. We do the newsletter together, and we do our town meeting report together. But because the sign up for our mailing list widget has been pre-existing on my website for a while, you can find our town meeting reports and our newsletters and our Join Our mailing list widget at my website, which is Kath James for State Rep, I think. And that would come up, I'm sure, if you Google that. So anyway, so we're happy to be here tonight. Are you guys going to do questions or not? That's up to you.
Yes, we can do
Great.
questions.
Well, so we'll be happy to take some questions afterwards as well. So anyway, we are about halfway through the 2025 legislative session. This year has gotten off to a pretty slow start. There have not been a bunch of bills coming to the floor. That's typical for the first year of a 2-year biennium. I would say that this year we're moving even more slowly than usual. We have a lot of new members. We had a lot of turnover during the last biennium, and those folks are only now sophomores, I guess. And then we had almost 51, I think, new members in the House this year. So we have a lot of new members. And so committees are taking quite a bit of time to take what I would call foundational or 101 testimony. You know, we all serve on committees. We spend most of our day in committees. And so we spend a lot of time in the first half of the biennium just getting to understand the areas that our committee oversees. So the other reason that things are moving slowly this year, though, is that voters, I remember last year standing in front of folks and talking quite a bit about property taxes, and I think voters sent a very clear message that they're concerned about property tax rates, and they're concerned about affordability, and they want to see the legislature do something about it. So there is a lot of focus this year in the State House on education reform. A lot of committees are working on that or trying to find out if there's any way that their work intersects with education reform, and it's really dominating the conversations in the State House. My colleague, Rob Hunter, serves on the Education Committee, and so he's going to talk about timeline, you know, when things are happening, when we can expect things to happen. He's going to talk a little bit more about the different plans, give you a little blow-by-blow on the different plans that are floating around. And so I will limit my education comments for now anyway, just to say that this is, for me, the hardest issue that we've been tasked with trying to solve during my time in the legislature. And the reason that I'm finding it to be so difficult is that it feels like a very fundamental clash of competing values or competing priorities, all of which are important and all of which matter deeply to people. So one is affordability. How do we make sure that Vermont is a state where young people, where families, where older people, where all of us can afford to live and can afford to pay our property tax bills? So that is important, and I think that message was delivered loud and clear. But reforming our education system is very complicated, it's very hard work, and it raises a set of equally important, I think, very deeply held values that Vermonters hold dear, including local control of our schools, including, for many of us in the Taconic and Green District, the town tuitioning program, and also for many folks, especially right here in Sunderland, the smaller community schools that are the absolute heart and soul of our communities. And so it feels in this moment right now that these, I don't want to say it feels like these things are being pitted against each other because that sounds confrontational, but it seems as though the task before the legislature is try to find a path forward that addresses all of these things. And that is very, very hard work. And I'll let Rob talk about that in a little bit more detail, and obviously we're happy to take questions. So I'll talk a little bit about what other things the legislature is working on. Every year for the past some number of years, we have been very focused on housing. It is not news to anybody that Vermont has a housing crisis. Housing is too expensive, it is in short supply. It impacts families, it impacts older folks, it impacts families who want to move here, and it impacts our businesses and our economy. So in the past couple of years, the legislature has been making what I would call steady but incremental progress on trying to turn the tide on a very challenging problem that Vermont is not alone. I don't think there's honestly a state in the nation right now that isn't facing some sort of housing shortage or housing crisis. So what have we been doing? Well, we plowed a lot of our federal COVID dollars into housing. So building affordable housing, trying to build out shelters, trying to establish programs that would help make it more affordable for first-generation home buyers, for first-time home buyers, and for that missing middle home buyers, for renters, to try to weatherize our aging rental stock and renovate our aging rental stock. So we've plowed a lot of the federal dollars into basically building and creating housing. And we're slowly starting to see that come online. At the same time, we've also been trying to focus on permitting, zoning, and the Act 250 process, because what we so often hear is that it's too hard to build housing in Vermont. So over the past couple of years, we've passed a series of bills, all of which have tried to make it easier to build housing in the places where it makes sense to build housing, where you could say, well, we want to build housing. So I would say that those, by and large, would be defined as our downtowns, our neighborhoods, our places where our communities have infrastructure or they want to see housing built. So that work continues. I'd say a lot of that culminated last year in our big Act 250 reform bill. And the nitty-gritty work of that Act 250 reform bill is just getting underway. There's going to be a land use review board that's going to work over the next couple of years to divide Vermont into tiers. Tier 1A and 1B will largely have Act 250 exemption for those communities that qualify. Tier 2 is going to be probably not too different from how it is now. And Tier 3 is going to define places where we really want to make sure that we're preserving wildlife corridors, forest blocks, and land that we want to see conserved in the future. So that work is getting underway now. In the meantime, we're working with the Scott administration and trying to build out a bill this year that will give more tools to our municipalities to make it easier and faster for them to issue building permits, and to provide them with some financing tools to build out infrastructure like water and sewer. So housing, I know that's always top of mind for folks. Healthcare, that is the hardest nut to crack. The healthcare affordability crisis is, I think, very real. Unfortunately, there are many areas of I guess, the rising cost of healthcare that the state legislature has very little ability to impact. But I think we all know, and I see Dr. Welfer here, that our rural healthcare system in Vermont right now is in crisis. It's very fragile. I worry a lot about our FQHCs, like Battenkill Valley Health in Arlington. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about federal funding cuts and federal funding freezes and how they could, the damage that they could deliver to Vermont. But in the very short term, often the work we do in the legislature gets frustrating. It feels like we're just nibbling around the edges of America's healthcare crisis. But we are going to be passing a bill to make it much easier to get a certificate of need. If there's anybody in this room that works with healthcare permitting, it's a very expensive, very time-consuming permitting process that providers have to go through when they want to add a new service. If you wonder sometimes why we still don't have a hub for our hub and spoke system down in Bennington, it's the certificate of need process, among other roadblocks. And then hoping always to do whatever we can to try to make healthcare more affordable for folks in Vermont. So I'm the chair of the new House Energy and Digital Infrastructure Committee. I love being a committee chair. It is a great bipartisan role. I've got a committee with, 3 Republicans, 1 independent, and 5 Democrats. We just passed our first bill out on a unanimous vote, which was my goal. We worked very hard to get a unanimous vote. Half of the things that we do in my committee are to oversee broadband, telecoms, and state infrastructure. And wow, the amount of oversight and attention that we need to pay there is a little bit intimidating. Right now, the Agency of Digital Services, which is sort of like the hub for all of state government's IT programs, is overseeing 53 active projects at a cost of more than $750 million over the next couple of years. There really hasn't been effective oversight of that. So our committee has arrived and said, like, hey, we're here. And the first bill we passed is going to require the Agency of Digital Services, and they were great to work with. They did not drag their heels at all, to provide a much better dashboard so that Vermonters can see what these projects are and what we're spending on. And for anybody who tried to make a UI claim during COVID, I don't know if folks remember, but our 50-year-old mainframe at the Department of Labor completely melted down. That's an example of a multi-year project that is now underway, and parts of it are going very well. Workers' comp is not going well. So it's interesting to be working on that. We're also working on energy and climate issues, and folks may remember that in 2023, the legislature passed a very controversial climate bill called the Affordable Heat Act, and that's the kind of work that my committee will be overseeing now. So just to give a quick update on the Affordable Heat Act, because it was a big deal, I know, during the election campaign as well. The idea of the Clean Heat Standard, as it was called, was to engage fuel dealers in the work of helping Vermonters switch to clean heat. So fuel dealers would have been required to buy or earn credits, and the money that raised would have been plowed back into deep discounts and incentives to help Vermonters do things like weatherize their homes or put in a heat pump or put in a heat pump hot water heater. Because it ran into so many roadblocks, Vermonters were not some Vermonters loved the idea, some Vermonters hated the idea. We did 2 unprecedented things. One is that instead of just passing the bill, we asked the Public Utility Commission to basically draft it and give it back to us as like a playbook with how much it would cost and how much it would save. Good news is that we got that playbook back in January, and folks may have heard here that the Affordable Heat Act was going to cost you $4 a gallon on your heating fuel. I spent months telling people that was not true. We got the numbers back. The Clean Heat Standard would have cost 8 cents a gallon in the first year, rising to 58 cents a gallon by year 10. Still, that's money, and it's real money. And the PUC also concluded something that wasn't surprising to me, that the idea just felt too complicated right now. And so the Clean Heat Standard is on the shelf. Basically, it's on ice. The legislature's not moving forward with it. I very much hope we can find another way to help Vermonters cover the cost of doing things like weatherizing their homes, because it's expensive work. A lot of folks can't afford to do it. Once you do it, and I can attest to this, you can save hundreds of dollars a month on your heating bills. So it's good work. Let's see. I wanted to talk just briefly about how Vermont's trying to prepare for potential federal spending cuts. So Vermont passes a balanced budget every year. We're very proud of that. And I think folks who follow the news won't be surprised to hear that the Trump administration and the DOGE project have moved very quickly to start scrutinizing a very wide range of federal spending. A lot of federal spending has already been halted or frozen, or it's been threatened in such a way that work has stopped. So why does that matter? Well, it matters because 36% of Vermont's annual budget comes from the federal government. So to give you an example, in my committee, there was a big federal program called Solar for All that was going to help folks put rooftop on. It was going to help build very small solar arrays in properly sited places. It was going to be a big boost to solar spending in Vermont. That money is now frozen. Work has stopped. There was some money that was on the way for federal, for rural broadband build-out. That money is now frozen or stopped. And so across every committee, what we're trying to do is get a handle on what federal funds we can still expect, what federal funds are shaky, and how we can either pause the program, stop the program, or try to see if we can fill the gap. The thing that I'm most worried about is social services. The House Republicans in Congress, not us, passed a bill that it's raised the question of deep cuts to Medicaid funding. That would be devastating for Vermont. A lot of our Medicaid money comes from the feds, and if we're facing a big hole in our Medicaid budget, we're not going to be able to plug much of that gap, I don't think, and we would do the best we could. There's also a significant amount of federal money that we get for transportation, roads, bridges, culverts, EV charging stations, you name it. And then our public schools get Title I money and other federal dollars. So what we're trying to do is try to anticipate, or at least keep an eye on it, so that we can try to be ready. It looks as though the tariffs on Canada and Mexico are going into effect tomorrow. We did take extensive testimony in our committee. That will almost certainly translate to higher energy prices for all of us, because we get a fair amount of our energy from Canada. Vermont Gas, none of us are on Vermont Gas, but they have a huge swath of people that heat their homes with Vermont Gas. That comes through a pipeline through Canada. Those folks will be hit. And we'll have to see what happens to electricity rates, because we get a lot of our energy from Hydro-Quebec. So TBD on all of that, and I'm sorry I've spoken too long, and I'll turn it over to Rob.
Thank you for having us. Yeah, and just so excited that I decided to get in the legislature at such an exciting time. Being on the education committee, This is actually the governor's plan right here, all 200 pages of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the highlights for you. And really what he's proposing to do is to not save us $1 zillion tomorrow, but rather to quote unquote bend the cost curve. Okay? So, and that's of this education system that we've spent 200 years making into a knot. Highlights. Excuse me. We currently, I'm dying, currently have 119 districts. This proposes that we go down to 5. This proposes student-teacher ratios of 1:25 for high school and middle school, pre-K to 4, 1 to 15. It proposes that for funding, we use a foundation formula where the districts will have, they'll say we have so many kids, and they'll say, well, the base amount per student is $13,200. Then weights are added for very rural students, students in poverty, English language learners, etc. And I think I read someplace that, not in here, but in another document, that they're, the average might be around $20,000 per pupil in the district. Okay? But you also already know that if they, as Kathleen said, like, you're talking about a major loss of local control, because there would be no more like voting on the budget, getting the school board together, that sort of thing. There would be 5 school boards of 5 people each in pretty big districts. So this is proposing pretty radical changes. It's also proposing that each district could assign a school choice school, but that they could also have as many school choice schools as they want. Now, believe me when I say it's not specific in here, but I believe what that is saying is that districts then could develop magnet schools, maybe an art school, maybe a STEM school, that sort of thing. It is not specific necessarily about where the students are to go. I mean, I guess we're assuming that they'll go where they went last year. If you have a lot of questions, so do I. Now, Senator Baumgart's is developing his own plan in the Senate. He is proposing 9 districts, not 5. He is trying very desperately to create a proposal that preserves the kind of school choice that this region has enjoyed. In the beginning, I thought that they were talking about school size minimums, that sort of thing. It doesn't seem to be in this. I read it twice. More just the student-teacher ratios. But those are the highlights. And there's an awful lot of unanswered questions. And every time you come up with a question, there's about 10 more that follow it. So,
Timeline?
yeah. Oh, timeline. So there's a thing called crossover, and by March 14th, all of our bills need to pass out of the House and over to the Senate. The money bills get another week, March 21st. We've had an extension on this because we literally just got it late this week. And so we'll have till the end of March to get this over to the Senate. But again, as I said, Senator Baumgart is kind of working on his own version. And I don't, I think that the House will probably, our committee will probably propose changes to this. But again, I think that this comes down to affordability and the governor really trying to say, okay, we'll make it better for the kids and we'll make it better for the taxpayers. So we'll see if that happens. There you go. You want us to move along?
Do you guys want us to move along or take some questions? We can take some questions if folks have questions. Rob.
With regards to schools, so the governor is one, and of course your committee, your House committee is going to look at it and propose it as proper. And then Seth is going to propose something.
Yep.
What happens if we run out of time? Does this just get punted to next year and nothing happens?
I actually don't know the answer to that.
I know the answer to that. Or there's different things that could happen. The thing I think is very likely to happen this year is some sort of property tax buy down. So, you know, buying down property tax rates is a short-term, quick fix, stopgap, feel-good thing. And we'll probably do it. So the governor has proposed a property tax rate buy down this year totaling about $77 million.
It's a very small buy
It's,
down,
you know,
$77.
The town meeting tour gets a little grueling. So I would imagine that you will see a bill this year. I don't want to say for sure, but we're going to buy down property tax rates. The reason I'm like, is that it's great, we all appreciate it, and then it puts you in a hole. Every time you do it, it puts you in a hole for next year. But, so I think you'll definitely see that, and then there are a lot of things that could happen, Rob. The House will definitely pass something, I assume, unless they can't get the votes. You know, unless they can't put together a plan that can get the votes. Then it'll go over to the Senate, and they'll scrap whatever the House did, and they'll start over. And then at the very end of the year, we'll have a conference committee, probably. I seriously doubt the House and the Senate are going to be like, we love all your changes, let's just do it. So there'll probably be a conference committee. That could be happening on the last day of the session. And if the conference committee gets up and walks away, that's it for this year, and we come back and try again next year.
Michael Walther. My understanding is that statewide there's like a $6 billion school infrastructure debt out there. Has that been talked about?
That's, you know, that's a thing that my committee's talked about a lot, that there's no provision in here for school building aid. And the $6 billion is pretty much projected, that is the what is projected as far as need. Like, these schools need serious renovations or replacement. And yeah, that is not in the bill.
And we'll just go on, keep going up.
Yes.
It's not in the governor's bill.
But there is actually a school construction aid bill.
There is a school construction bill. The other thing that we haven't figured out, that many people have been raising, is the cost of health care. That's about 15% of our school budgets on average statewide now, and it keeps going up. So I think it's why this work is so hard. You know, we're trying to rebuild our education funding system. We're trying to rebuild the way we govern our schools. We're trying to figure out how we preserve the things we love so much. And we have to figure out what to do with the $6 billion outstanding capital construction bill and the cost of health care. So it's complicated as an understatement.
Okay, if I can just make a comment on the healthcare, I think the manpower needs are immense. We're competing with other states and communities and suburban areas. If we could build some kind of incentives to create ability to attract providers, that's going to be really important.
Rick Goddard. The carbon tax, I disagree with that a little bit because it's just another tax. We have Efficiency Vermont, which is the biggest nonprofit in Vermont and around. And every business pays a big portion of money to them. Every person pays money in their electric bill. And they pick and choose what they want to give you money for. And the state push them towards doing some more housing, helping redo the housing and stuff, because it started out really good, but now they're a big organization that they pick what they want to do. But we all are forced to pay that, businesses and personally.
Yeah, you're right. We all pay an efficiency charge on our electric bill, and that money goes to Efficiency Vermont to turn around and deliver it back in the form of incentives. One of the bills that we are considering this year, but we haven't started taking testimony, we really haven't taken a deep dive into it, would allow Efficiency Vermont within the current, within its current revenues to to try to expand its work into things like weatherization or, you know, installing heat pumps. But honestly, I haven't taken a hard look at that yet. But the idea behind that is that they've already done so much work with helping Vermont become a more energy efficient state. And I'd be happy to show you, they've got a presentation, presentation that I'd be happy to share with you that shows, you know, for the money that we've all paid to Efficiency Vermont, how much Vermonters have saved as a result of all the efficiency measures that they've rolled out around the state, and it's impressive, I have to say. And I'd be happy to send you that.
Some of that money is going out of state also. It has been going out of state also with that nonprofit, so.
I'm not aware of that. So if you could send me an email, I'll get some info to you and I'll look into that as well. Our email is that legislative one that's on our town meeting report.
I also have a disillusion with Efficiency Vermont. I think that they locked up the efficiency network. They determine who does what, and it's locked out a lot of independent workers. And I don't, you know, to be able to get into Efficiency Vermont, it costs a small-time operator considerable time and money to get into it, and then this isn't guaranteed you're going to get any benefit out of it. So, yeah, I'm kind of like, why has it been so locked up with just Efficiency Vermont? Why is it that a rebate can't be given to a homeowner and the homeowner decides who it is they want to do the work? But it's Efficiency Vermont that determines who it is that's going to do it.
That's it. I didn't know that.
They've eliminated a whole range of tradespeople from doing that kind of work unless you qualify under their
To be one of their
qualifications,
certified contractors.
which costs you money and time to be certified, with no guarantees you're going to be utilized. Because most of their business goes to large firms.
Right.
They don't go to independent people. So I'm a little disillusioned with Efficiency.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I didn't know about the process for contractors to be, you know, I guess, to get the Efficiency Vermont seal of approval, so I'll look into that.
Yeah, that's good, thank you.
My name's Tim Mill. I've actually in the process of trying to deal with efficiency for some organization. And their idea was they want certified contractors. They will check the efficiency and then the blower door test, whatever, before and after. But that said, they have no certified contractors in Bennington County. The closest ones to you are Wallingford or Chester.
But you're contending there should be.
Well, it costs money.
Right.
It costs $3,000 plus to take a course with them.
Wow.
And then I'm certified with them, but I've abandoned them because they don't deal with local independent people. They deal with big organizations.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good to know.
I saw a question, I thought over here.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Beth Fairford office. I'm the executive director of the Child Care Center, and we're actually we're going to be using the nonprofit enhanced rebate for some heat pumps through Efficiency Vermont. And I'm just used for that work. I don't know if it's relevant or helpful, but we're able to use what we want to.
Okay, well, this definitely gives us something to take back with us.
Jeff.
Regarding housing, existing buildings vacant, like retail, it's going down to office buildings, everyone's working at home. So, buildings that are already there, maybe finding ways that you were saying about the permitting earlier, to make it a lot easier for developers to use. I mean, we had, the Orbis headquarters. Now, there's a lot of pluses that could have been housing. I guess it's being sold. There might be some negatives, why it couldn't, but, maybe when the legislature finds out or somebody finds out it's vacant, a big mall goes under. Let's look and see, would it be feasible to put some housing in there?
Yeah, it seems to make so much sense, and I don't know what the barriers are, every time somebody raises the idea, there's heads nodding all around, and, I don't know why we haven't been able to get that done.
Although there are about three nonprofits, like right in Montpelier, that kind of do that kind of work. Right?
Yeah, but I think Jeff's talking more about like state incentives, like roll this out.
No, I know there's groups out there that do it, I think in Bennington, Northshire, Shire's housing. Yeah, so maybe just more of that, so it's not having to build new buildings all the time.
Yes.
Using vacancy rates of offices and retail at 20%.
Yes.
Suggestion.
It's a good one.
Briefly, I have my name is Jared Bianchi. I have one sort of question and then I guess two quick comments, just not to take too long. The first is full disclosure, I'm on the board of GNAT TV, and Representative James, I know that you're involved with some of the communication stuff with your committee, and I wanted to point out that we're facing a lot of, as an entity, increasing prices, but also we're funded through basically a fee that is attached to cable subscribers, and that has been going down precipitously as people start to cut the cord, do their Roku, do their Netflix. I'm thinking right now as we're sitting in this meeting about the people who, for socioeconomic or physical or whatever reason, can't be here tonight. GNAT is bringing this meeting to them. So I'm hoping that you're thinking proactively about how to make sure that those people are not left behind as we start to see this sort of delta develop between people who can access democracy and people who can't. So that's a pitch to you guys to really think and engage on that issue. The other is I hope that you're looking closely at issues of public safety. We're in Sunderland. It's a beautiful small community, but like everywhere else, we're a global community now, and we're starting to see those ramifications. And I know that there's a lot of discussions, and there have been for years in the legislature around public safety. So I hope that you guys are looking closely at, even though we have an image of ourselves as small towns, what we need to do legislatively to remain safe, and really pitch to you to sort of keep that in mind as well. And finally, I became aware that there's a proposal to shift responsibility for housing benefits from the Agency of Human Services to municipalities. And so, as somebody who lives in a small community, I hope that small communities and those abilities to reach an economy of scale are part of that discussion of transition.
Thanks so much, Jared, and thanks for the work you do as well. Let's see, number one, I am a huge fan of community media and of GNAT, and am up in the State House all the time pushing for more funding for the Access Network. I think that the work that GNAT does is vital to democracy, especially right now. I follow a lot of academic organizations that study news deserts, and I think that the future of basically of media in our country is community media and nonprofits. And I think I can't even begin to tell you how important I think that work is. And so preaching to the choir on that. On public safety, that was your second one. Yeah, we have been trying to increase funding for the judiciary to do what we can just to start to reduce the backlog. I hear about the judicial backlog all the time. We tried to get more money to the judiciary last year. We got some more money, not as much as we had wanted, and we tried to put some more money into the Budget Adjustment Act again this year. So just for the obvious answer, helping to reduce the backlog, I think is one thing we can do that feels probably a little less complicated, than some of the other issues that are harder to tackle. We've delayed Raise the Age again for another 2 years. That's going to come to the House floor soon. Anyway, so trying not to overburden, an already overburdened court and judicial system, at least feels like the easiest apple bite that we can take. And then I think that your third thing, so the governor did propose, we had a little fight, we're having a little fight about the Budget Adjustment Act, which is, it's too bad really, because it's about $1.8 million, which is, I know that's a lot of money, but in the context of the state budget, it is not a lot of money. The House added $1.8 million to the governor's recommended mid-year budget adjustment. And that money was for the purpose of simply extending eligibility for the vulnerable Vermonters who are currently living in the motels, just keeping the folks who are there now there until the end of the fiscal year, at which point we hope we have passed a comprehensive bill to start transitioning Vermont away from the motel voucher program, which everybody knows is broken and doesn't work, to a system that is focused a little bit more on temporary shelters built out in different places around the state where people can go and they're not out on the streets, but they have a really wide range of social services, the social services that they need. And so we're trying to get from here to there. The governor opposed that $1.8 million, and his latest proposal was that instead that we deliver $2.1 million directly to municipalities and have municipalities manage the folks who would be leaving the motels on their own, so town by town. So did I get that right?
I believe you did.
Okay, I saw a head shake and I was like, I'm pretty sure I boiled that down properly. But so as you can tell, and I do not want to be snarky, but I do not oppose that. The House and Senate have rejected that proposal right now. It looks as though the governor might veto the Budget Adjustment Act because of that. Then I don't know what will happen because, times have changed and we may not have the votes to override. And so we may be negotiating over how we transition the motel program with, and again, we're talking about the people who are there now. And I think that it's important for folks to understand that the Vermonters who are living in the motels right now, broken system, yeah, it's a broken system. But they are there because they qualify. They are Vermonters with disabilities. They are older Vermonters. They are people with kids, or they are fleeing domestic violence or some other unsafe situation at home, or they're there under the expanded cold weather eligibility rules. So those are the folks who are remaining right now in the motels. So thank you for asking about that. We'll see. Stay tuned. We're having our first little fight.
One final, and then
I
we'll...
want to thank you for the time you spent with us tonight, answering all our questions, for the hard work that you won't feel here. And can you tell us, please, when the next coffee hour is, so that those of us who have more questions can ask them there?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, it was almost like a setup. Our next coffee hour is March 15th at Wayside.
Great.
And for anybody, I really would urge you to just hop on my website, sign up for our mailing list. You'll see our coffee hour schedule there. And write to us anytime. Rob and I really try to get back to people quickly. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to Representatives James and Hunter.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. Okay, it is 7:48. Let's resume this meeting. Two things that I should have said earlier. One, we're going through Articles 1 through 14 here tonight. The others will be voted on by Australian ballot tomorrow at the town municipal building. And the other thing is that in order to vote on any motions made, you do have to be a resident of the town of Sunderland. Okay, moving on. Article 5.
Did we ever vote on 4?
What?
Did we ever finish the vote on 4? We had a motion, and we had a second. Did we do it?
It was.
Did we do the whole
I think we
vote?
voted.
repairs to the municipal building. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor of approving the sum of $1,500 for the Building Maintenance Reserve Fund, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, that article has passed. Article 6, shall the voters of Sunderland establish a reserve fund to be called the Audit Reserve Fund, to be used for the engagement of professional auditing and financial services. Somebody make a motion. Virginia Dexter, second. Rick Timmerman. Discussion. This is something new. Okay.
At the last meeting, I think there was a discussion as we have a quote for $28,000 for a future audit.
That's correct.
And in this year's say, seeing that we approved $9,700 last year to actually fund this fund. It is not spent this year.
I believe that the motion is to establish the fund, establish the naming of the
No,
fund.
I understand that. We issued an addendum to the article. I mean, we're establishing a fund and putting nothing in it, and that $9,700 is going to go back to the taxpayers, but not help the fund.
Would somebody on the board like to address that?
Well, the year's not over yet.
We thought the fund had to be established before we put funds in it. And if there should be, I think the object was to put those $9,000 plus funds into that, but I don't know if that has to be voted. I'm not clear on that.
Well, no, because you didn't put that in the wording.
Pardon me?
You didn't put that in the wording of the motion,
No.
of the article. But the year's not over yet, and if you accept this quote or another quote before the end of the year, you could potentially pay that 97 out as the first installment, so it may not be there at the end of the year anyway.
Okay.
If you accept an ad.
The fund needs to be established first. And again, we would vote another time on if we approve of $700 or $1 million for this fund. Just as we approved
And
$100.
I know you couldn't hear what they were saying up here. It sounds like if you all approve the establishing of the fund, then the select board can put money into it. So they can, at a later select board meeting, move that money into the fund,
No.
once the fund is established.
No, that's...
Or not.
No, that's not how that works. No.
That's what it sounded like.
No, it's just that they have a quote right now, and of course, it's only March. So if they accept a quote or another quote, that money that's in there may be spent towards whoever they're contracting with before the end of the year.
Okay. So if they have a quote, if they accept the quote, they can use the money that had been set aside for that to start paying for it
Right.
this year.
So it might not be left over
And
like he's thinking. It may not be there at the end of the year, but it may be spent towards the end of this year.
Right. So it might be spent this year, so you may not be able to put it in.
As long as you're not going to lose the $9,700 that we approved last year, that's fine. Communicate.
And the intent is to fund that next year after this is established. So we'll use the funds, as Susan was saying, to pay partial, and we haven't written a purchase order for that audit yet, but We're going to see if we can cut that down a little bit. It's, the issue is that the whole state has trouble finding auditors to do their audits, and it's been, our last audit was done from Bennington, and they refused to do it anymore. And that's, I personally called a whole bunch of local folks that had in there who do audits. None of them are doing audits. So.
There's no one in Bennington County who will do that anymore.
So this money is dedicated to audits. It can't go back to the general fund, it's dedicated to.
Unless it's not spent. Then it would go back to the voters, I mean, the population, but.
It would just be a surplus.
So, the intent of this is to establish the fund so we can fund it next year and do the audits on a more regular basis.
And keep adding to it until the next audit. That's why the reserve fund.
Yes, I understand, but I don't quite understand if this money is seed money for the reserve fund and dedicated as seed money to the reserve fund, or all of a sudden the money goes back to the general fund and it doesn't.
If we don't partially pay for an audit by the end of June, it will go back.
To the general fund.
Yep.
And what he's proposing is we add a stipulation that it stays in the
Reserve.
reserve audit fund.
Yep.
Is that right?
It's just an addendum to the article. So I'm not sure how, you have a quote, are you going to enter into an agreement with a firm that may do an audit next year or the year after and just prepay them the $97.50? So how do you pay something without a contract or an invoice from a business?
We have to negotiate that, so we'll have to.
And if we would approve the reserve fund right now, why couldn't that money go into there right now for your fiscal year with more July?
That could be done, right?
So it's still.
Part of the article, I don't know if we can really change the article.
But amending the article.
With an addendum to the, this addendum to the article, yeah.
And is that,
I would like to think you're going to be doing a progress payment here before the end of June.
We have a question over here.
In my right to think that it seems that if you already have a line item for auditing, then you already have, and it's already funded or budgeted, why would you have a reserve fund? Or am I inferring that that money, if it's not spent this year, goes back to general,
Yeah.
to the general fund, and by establishing a fund dedicated to that, the money, and if it's funded, that money stays in there, and you can add to it yearly, so when you have a large budget, when you have a large amount for an audit. Is that the difference? Because otherwise, if you have a line item already budgeted for auditing, it seems redundant.
the line item was based on previous audits that were $9,000, and now we're getting quotes
Why do
for,
you need a fund?
because we need to build up that reserve fund so we can pay the $28,000 or whatever these audits are,
Okay.
and
So then it should be so then we should have an addendum to this to fund it, so that money that's already budgeted goes in there and starts growing, otherwise we're $9,000
2017, I believe,
next year.
before I
We're
started.
going to lose this money that the town already allocated in its budget that doesn't, and it doesn't need it, otherwise it's just going to get sucked in, and then we're a year behind. So I believe we should, as the gentleman, I believe, suggested, if we're going to vote on this, have an addendum that it gets, that it gets funded, or else it's just words, and it doesn't help anybody.
it does in the future, but it doesn't, this year, it would not help, but we have a quote, we need to do this audit, as
but we've already budgeted that money, so we should, in my opinion, fund it so that we have already 9,000. So next year, if you're gonna budget 9,000, there's 18,000 toward the $28,000 thing as opposed to already being behind.
It was my understanding that the fund had to be approved before you put funds into it. So that was my understanding. I love the idea of the addendum myself. I don't know the legality of it personally. I don't know.
Last year established a special project fund with the assumption that if there was ARPA money not spent, it would then flow into it. I mean, we're basically trying to do the same thing here. We've got this $9,700. It's simple as this, there's an addendum needed to this article that can we make a motion that we add the addendum to this article?
You can make a motion.
I make a motion
And
that
I second
we,
the motion.
Did you get
Motion's
that?
on the floor.
So,
I know 2017 was the last audit, so it's been a while. So having the reserve funding due one every so often, so many years.
I agree. We're not disagreeing with that, but it sounds like, based on this motion, that
We can fund it.
we believe that it should be funded,
Well, I'm all for it.
that it should be funded,
if not spent
as
before
long as the
that
money's
amount.
been budgeted already.
And Susan, what's
And
your,
not spent,
pardon me?
and if it's not spent by the end of the year.
So
Yeah.
Susan, if it's not spent at the end of the year, it becomes surplus.
Goes
And
in,
Right, so
couldn't
if you, but the addendum to do it, but you need to put in it that if it's not already spent.
If
I
it's
would
not
like to
already
think you're
spent,
gonna
yes.
have it spent.
Right. And
You know.
even if that's illegal, can't we, if it becomes surplus, can't the board decide to designate that surplus to go into the fund?
It should be voted as part of this. This is a
Well,
separate, this is
they-
a whole,
we
you
could vote
can
it.
put on this addendum, but just say, if it's not spent, put it in there. If you don't spend it by year end.
I think, going with the,
It sounds to me like the disagreements on this issue are purely procedural. And so if we can't do an addendum to this particular article, can we add on an article at the end?
We can't add an article at the end because we can only vote on what was.
Warren.
And then,
We can add
Yes.
an addendum.
and there is a motion on the floor.
Yes, there is. So,
I think we have.
let me,
We did.
let me reiterate what is on the floor. There was a motion to add an addendum to this article saying that if the money in the line item for an audit that was already in the budget for this year is not spent by the end of the year, that it go into this fund. Correct? What was that? The end of this fiscal year, yes. That's what I meant, but it should be said. Does that sound accurate?
yep.
Okay.
Do we have to approve the fund first?
No.
no, it's an addendum to the article.
Correct. So it would all be together. We'll vote to establish the fund and put this money into the fund if it's not spent by the end of this fiscal year. Okay. So, with, no,
I'm so sorry.
that's okay.
And this is maybe really too precise, but would we want to say not just this year, but if there's ever any unused funds in the line item any year, like, so it's not particular to this year, but any unused funds get diverted to the special.
There wouldn't be any more unused funds in that line item because there would be the creation of the reserve fund, and money would be placed in the reserve fund every year as part of the budget. That would be the intent.
So you would never, you wouldn't use that line item until the year you go to have the audit, and then you move the funds from the reserve fund.
Yep.
To pay for the audit. Right.
But thank you for clarifying that. Okay. One more.
Sorry, just a quick question. If there's any hesitation or anyone has an issue with that, can you explain a little bit more about
just want to make sure I understand both sides if there is another shot. Is there a hesitation to this then?
I don't have any hesitation.
Yeah.
Right.
As long as it's legal, it's fine.
Good. I just want to make sure I understood.
Okay, so let's call the question. Is everyone in favor of establishing a reserve fund to be called the Audit Reserve Fund to be used for the engagement of professional auditing and financial services, and putting any unspent money from the line item for an audit from this fiscal year into that fund?
I think procedurally, we need to do the addendum first,
Right. Correct.
and then call
Then call the
Article
question.
5, including the addendum which was approved.
Okay, okay.
It makes sense, but it has a little article that you stated.
Right, you're right, thank you. Okay, so what we're voting on now is just the addendum. All in favor of the aforementioned addendum, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone not in favor?
No.
One no?
Fund doesn't exist.
One no. Okay, so the ayes have it. Now we go to approving the article, which is establishing the fund. All in favor of doing that, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed to that? Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $700 for the support of Arlington area child care to provide services to the residents of the town. Harriet Welfare. Name? Mia Smith. Any discussion? No discussion heard. If you are in favor of this article, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Article 7 has passed. Article 8, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $500 for the support of window dressers to provide services to the residents of this town? Marie, are you raising your hand? Marie Lewinsky. Second? Jim. Jim, yeah. Did you get that? Any discussion?
Oh, yeah.
For all of you who've been here before, you've seen my dog and pony show, but I brought a big one today. That's a window insert back there. You has a little one. But they're energy efficient, it's an energy efficient project where we get volunteers to build those actual units. We built 1,000 of them by we in northern Bennington County. 1,000 of those in the last 4 years, of which a good number, 30 or so, have gone to Sunderland residents. Of that, more than half are given away free. On average, and just real quick, is to go into a fund with window dressers. It's a nonprofit based out of Maine that's been doing this for about 20 years almost. And it's just, again, it'll be used to help Sunderland residents get these things free.
They work really well. They really do help.
I'll second that. We volunteer and we have them in our skylights and in our kitchen, and they're really great.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity to give back to the community.
This is one pragmatic, really do something type energy efficient thing. And right, and it's a community building. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions about window dressers? Hearing no further discussion, let's vote. Please say aye if you agree to expend $500 to support window dressers. Aye. Anyone opposed? That article has passed. Article 9, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $1,500 for the support of Arlington Community Public Health Nursing Service to provide services to the residents of this town. Michael Welter. A second?
I second.
Patty Ruttens. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor of expending $1,500 for the nursing services?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Article 10, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $5,000 for the support of the recreation park in Arlington to provide services to the residents of this town? Colleen York, second. Alex Rittens. Any discussion? Hearing none, let's vote. All in favor, please say aye of expending $5,000 to the rec park.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Article passes. Article 11, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $10,010 for the support of the Martha Canfield Memorial Free Library to provide services to this town? Mia Smith. Second. Phyllis Warren. Any discussion?
Is the $10 a typo?
No, they did a 10%. They raised it by 10%, and that's what it worked out to.
That's not 10%, it's $10,000.
No, it's not.
9,000.
It was
9,100.
9,100, and they went up 10%.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought that was funny too. And I'm on the board of the library. I missed seeing that. Yes, it's $10,010. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of expending that sum to the library, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Article passes, the library thanks you. Article 12, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $700 for the support of Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging to provide elder services to the residents of this town? Michael Welter. Second. Patty Ruttens. Any discussion? Okay, let's vote. Please say aye if you are in favor of spending $700 for the Southwestern Vermont Council on Aging. Aye. Anyone opposed? Article passes. Article 13, shall the voters of Sunderland vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $150 for the support of the Project Against Violent Encounters to provide victim services to the residents of this town? Harriet Welter? Colleen York? Any discussion? Okay, please say aye if you are in favor of expending $150 for PAVE.
Aye.
Any opposed? Article passes. And that brings us to Article 14, which is the discussion of any other non-binding business, which means we can't vote on it, but we can discuss it. Phyllis Warren?
If there are candidates who are running for office that are here tonight, could they stand up in front and introduce themselves and tell us what office you're running for? There's so many names. I know faces, so I'm terrible with names, so I couldn't tell who I'm voting for.
Yes, and I think we should mention that Andrew McKeever is stepping down from the select board, so we thank him for his service. And I believe I believe we have at least one person here who is running for select board. If you'd like to introduce yourself. Are you both? Oh, you're both here. Okay.
You understand?
See?
I'm Rick Timmerman. Been in the town since 2010. I've been on the board before. Running for a one-year term for selectman.
Anthony Thompson. My wife and I went to high school here in Arlington, actually with Caroline as well. I heard an individual stepping down, was encouraged to run, and happy to be given the opportunity.
Todd Lawrence. I've been on the select board for 1 year. I'm also the town emergency management director. It's been a great first year. There's a lot to learn. I'm excited to see Dixie running and individuals interested in running also. And I am running currently unopposed. There's still time for a write-in if someone wants to go. But for Andrew's 3-year seat. Thank you.
Dixie Zenz, I'm current chair. All these gentlemen are excellent, so and working with the folks on the board, they've been terrific, and I want to thank Andrew especially, who got pulled onto the board in 2019 in April after town meeting, and we had a void, so we gathered Andrew and pulled him onto the board. So and thank you for all your services and everything for the time you've been on this.
And Todd, you said you're running for a 3-year term.
Correct.
Dixie, are you running for
one year
term? Anthony?
Rick and I are also running for one.
So 3 of us are running together. They're much bigger than I am, so they should probably get a lot more votes.
And are there spaces for everybody, or are you running against each other?
Now there's one of us has to drop out eventually. So.
Playing musical chairs. Only 2 chairs.
2 spots open for 3 people running. Okay, thank you guys. I'm running for moderator, if you'd like. I would also like to mention that Susan Whitney, who has been our town clerk for the past 6 years, is retiring this year. So we will...
Andrew? I just wanted to say, speaking of Susan and the great work she's done on the board, for the board as town clerk, the board wanted to sort of just say a special thank you to her. She's been the town clerk since 2002. Before that, she was the assistant town clerk. She had a very tough act to follow, and Rose Keogh, who had been the town clerk for about 30 years or so. But Susan quickly proved herself to be a very hard-working, dedicated town employee. She kept track of all the books and all the other responsibilities, which included managing the town's website. And for those of you who may not be familiar with that, that's a very interesting job, particularly for all of us who think that there should be all kinds of stuff on the website that Susan has to put in there for us. So the select board just wanted to take a moment during this, which will be her last town meeting as town clerk, just to say a special thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. She always found the time to answer everyone's questions and did it very pleasantly. And as part of this, I sort of reached out to a highly reliable source of information, who shall remain anonymous for the moment, to find out a few other fun facts about Susan.
Oh, geez. Oh, no.
And there are many, it turns out. Well, she's also the assistant business manager for the Mill River Unified Union School District, number one. But it also turns out that she loves Jeeps and car shows, and most importantly, is a Star Trek fan. So, in a galaxy far, far away, there's an alternative Sunderland waiting somewhere for you.
There you go.
And perhaps most significantly of all, she always makes sure that the candy dish is full and the dog treats are in hand for all visitors. So clearly, in the Sunderland Town Hall, dogs are always welcome, and people are tolerated. Anyway, thanks again, Susan, for a great job.
Thank
now
you.
You have time for us back here.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Marie?
Hi, I'm Marie Lewinsky, and Tommy and Scott and I, we're a part of the Sunderland Safe Roads Committee. Is everyone familiar with what we do? Yes, any questions? Okay, so you've seen how far we've come from the town garage to Bacon Hollow, and now grants come up every spring. And of course, you don't know what it's going to look like this year. The grants come up 2025 in the spring, and then by June, we have to have a submission in, and then we're alerted in September. Now, I know it's too late for this year, so I don't know, moving forward, if the town wants us to continue to work on a shoulder, a bike pedestrian shoulder, to continue it past Bacon Hollow. Or there were two options. One, we already got funded. We want to thank the select board, first of all, and the townspeople for making it happen. We see a lot of people have been enjoying that shoulder, either biking, walking. So, yeah. So moving forward, it's how do we move forward? Whether the townspeople want us to continue to look at grants to improve the road, whether it's from Bacon Hollow to the school, or from Chiselville up the north side of the
Mark Johnson gave us there's always a cost. That's why we bring it to the town. And part of the grant thing is we have to show that the town residents want this. It's not a cost. But Mark gave us an estimate recently, and to go another half mile, whether it's to the school or whether it's from Chiselville, is 30% more than it was 2 years ago. So it's a 50-50 grant, and meaning the town gets 50% and we have to put out 50%. It's small scale. Unfortunately, it's not large enough for us to get an aid from the by the state. So it's about $70,000 estimated this year to do that half mile. And we don't even know if there's going to be a grant this year with what's going on. I'm sure, widening the bike path. It's not going to be a priority. But we want to know whether you're interested in us to continue to pursue this and get this on town meeting so we can vote on it like for next year.
Yes. Yes.
Our 50% would be 70,000.
That's the payment for the reserve fund.
Yes.
We wish. So is it something the town wants us to continue to pursue? Yes. Yes. Okay.
All right, anything else, Jeff? Or somebody's got this right there.
So everyone can do the, I'm sure the energy committee, Scott, Lisa, Dixie, Andrew, and also, that's our committee, your committee. We got some good news. I don't know if you heard, but we did get a, what they call a MERC grant from the state, Municipal Energy Resilience Program. What the state did is they took $45 million of their $1.2 billion of ARPA money, about 4% of it, and designated it to go to all the towns in Connecticut that apply for it to get a municipal building energy efficiency project going. And we had 2 energy audits, one of the garage, obviously one of the town hall. It identified energy efficiency needs in both buildings, obviously more so in the garage than in our relatively new town hall. We applied for the grant. We were approved in November. The select board at the last meeting approved our contracting with Bennington-based Centerline Architect and Planners to manage the entire project. Now specifically, and I don't think I mentioned the amount, it's $206,000, so a significant amount. What it's going to do, we're going to get solar on both buildings, definitely on the town hall, so that beautiful south-facing ceiling, the roof, I should say, that you see, will have solar. We don't know yet if we're going to get any on the garage. Again, this is what the architect company is going to tell us, what's feasible down there. If not, we'll put them all up at town hall. A heat pump for the town hall meeting room. As you may know, there's heat pumps in the office area, but not in the meeting room. A heat pump for the garage to help make it a little nicer for our workers, a little more healthy in the winter. And obviously also, our heat pumps right here. Now, 1 or 2 EV chargers. And we're thinking right now that we're going to push, and we can amend this a little bit by getting approval from the state. Instead of the 2 level 1 chargers, and then if you know about level 1, it doesn't charge much over 8 or 9 hours. We're going to try to get at least a level 2 charger installed at town hall. And then the largest project is going to be what they call thermal envelope sealer at our town garage. That's air sealing, insulation of the roof, ceiling, walls, and doors. By far, that's the biggest of that $206,000. 30% of that money is going to the town hall project, 70% to the town garage project. In terms of its cost savings, the estimate that we got from the energy audits, we spend approximately $8,000 a year on total energy costs. It's going to be reduced by almost 65%. So that's at least $5,200 that we'll be saving. Last but not least, the work's going to start this year. We're pretty sure we're going to get it started this year. There's 8 other towns, I think, in Bennington County are getting the money too, so we're trying to move quickly. And as we all know, there's only so many contractors, and they're already saying, Shasta, everyone's doing solar, garage work, so we've got to get moving on this. And last but not least, I wanted to thank Susan and Caroline for helping put together a lot of the data that's needed. We've asked like a few times, Caroline, how much do we spend on electric and propane and all that, so we're worried about that. Are there any questions about that, Dr. Grant?
Yeah, Lauren McGrath. I'm just curious about the EV charger. I'm curious I understand why level 2 over level 1, but I'm curious why level 2 over level 3, like who the target audience is for this particular charger.
Good question. Did everyone hear? Okay, good. Yeah, level 3, I guess, is it?
That's like a fast charger.
That's the real fast one. It's not like a Tesla supercharger, but it's very fast. It's something we definitely could look into. And yes, to answer your question, it would be for town workers, obviously, if they wanted to have their car charged while they were working. I'm pretty sure Mark told me he's got an electric truck, right? I think he mentioned an EV, so at least one of our employees, I don't know if anyone else.
Pickup, not a,
I think he told me that. Yeah.
not a plow truck.
Pay for they hooked up, the public pays, so the town's paying the KW.
The town would be paying,
So when you start going up to level 2, level 3, it could be very expensive.
Right. Well,
between a 4-hour charge and a 20-minute charge, it's going to be quite a
How much does it charge?
how much?
Yeah, how much does it?
Well, the level 1s are $2,500 each, is what they allotted. We're going to.
No, to charge a car. How much does
Oh,
it
yeah.
It totally depends where you are. If you're charging at home versus charging at Walmart, it's very, very different.
So what does it cost at home?
It depends on the time of day.
Depends on the time of day, and like
And what type of charging?
It could be very expensive if you got level 3.
Yeah, level three, I was just wondering, because they're very different. I was trying to think, you know, if you're trying to bring people into town, you want a level 3, because now it's a service, and they can come in, and they can shop, and they can do a thing. If you're providing a service to the people who are working there, then level 2 makes sense. So I was just trying to figure out who the audience was.
Personally, think the level 2 would for town workers would be pointless because, yeah, I got an EV, I'll walk, you know, I could right over the parking lot, and right across the street from the home. I don't think we want to do that, so that's why I'm
only pay for you to drive your car.
Right, like I have to pay it for, right, so if I plug in at work, I have to pay for that.
Right.
So,
A very good question. That's something that we'll ask the architect, the project manager, I should say.
I have actually checked into this, and it is very expensive. So
For the 3.
very.
Yeah, okay.
would we have a base station for that?
You might be
So
able
that
to.
the cost doesn't commute back onto the town?
Right, no, that's important.
It depends on which car you plug in.
They have it in that.
Every car.
They have what's called charge point, like you can just go talk to the people at Mappin, I mean, you can just plug in, you can sync up on your app, and they charge them back.
You could just ask around how much you actually
Okay, good. Good points. Good point. Thank you.
We're going to make it good.
Oh, okay, good. Thank you. Very good insight. Anything else about the grant? So,
Hi, I have a question, Megan Ward. Is this a grant that's 100% covered? And
Yes.
then is it something that's paid up front?
good points, yeah. It is 100%, and the town pays nothing. We checked off the box that asks for what they call a financial hardship, which is just a umbrella term that would allow the state to give us 20% of this, or $40,000 something up front, as opposed to waiting till you get the invoices. We would have to pay it, but then within 30 days, they would reimburse us. So specifically, to answer your question, yeah, there's no money from the town going places. If we didn't get the hardship, we would have to, pay the bill and then get reimbursed within 30 days. I don't know how good the state is. Are they good about it when they say, have you ever done that with 30 days? I think they'd be pretty, good with that. If they pay you within 30 days. But anyway, that needs to go. Anything else? Okay. Last but not least, Green Up Day is coming up. May 3rd, the first Saturday in May. Last year we had 95 volunteers. 55 of those were Orbis and GMP employees that helped us. We got that. Watch the town community website or web page on the town site for information on that. Last but not least, window dressers. As I spoke about, probably in the end of October. If anybody wants to buy any of them or have us possibly give them free or volunteer.
Is it with me in Arlington yet?
We're thinking it would.
Manchester, especially Manchester.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, I'm thinking it might still be the church, just because we weren't sure about American Legion. They were saying, we don't know what's going on. But we had that first congregational church last year, and 80 volunteers helped. It's really serious. And again, the web page, front page form, the journal, and all that, we'll be having more about that. Okay. Yeah.
I did it 1 year and then I missed it.
Okay. Yeah, definitely go to the town website, and then there's a tab at the top for Energy Committee, and we'll be, as soon as we know where it's going to be and when. And it's usually a full 5 days to build these things. And again, they're a lot of fun. They're actually pretty easy to build.
And when you volunteer, if you give your email, you'll get a notification from the year planner. Oh, yeah, provided email.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else have any business to bring forward? Yes, Todd.
Okay, you want to go first?
No, you go.
Okay. also emergency responders in the event of an emergency. The first one is the Citizens Assistance Registry for Emergency, the CARES program. And it works with tying your physical property in the 911 service. And if you have any kind of medical disabilities or any kind of issues that might be helpful that first responders know in the event of an evacuation, are you on oxygen? Are you on any kind of battery packs? How long those last? So that way, if there is a big emergency evacuations, myself, any of the first responders, we can ask the state for who in this area is on the CARES program, and that way we know we can go check on them and provide any kind of assistance. I mean, I'm not going to be going in a boat probably, but the fire department would go take a look and check on that stuff. That's the CARES program. You'd have to register online. And then kind of a follow-up for that is the supplemental automatic location identification. It's called the ALI. And that it's kind of like CARES, but it ties it with your phone number instead of your physical address. And that's helpful for first responders if, say, an individual has maybe autism and is sensitive to sounds, or they have a breathing tube and they can't speak. And now if, say, someone with a breathing tube can't speak, they call 911, and the 911 operator doesn't hear anything, they can see that note that says this individual has a condition, you know, so-and-so. That way the first responders, the police, fire, ambulance would know. So those are just a couple of programs I'm going to try to push out each year. For the CARES program, I think there's only one address. I don't know who it is because it's not an emergency, but there's one address in Sunderland that is registered into it. You know, if there's any more people, that'd be great to sign up. Any questions or comments, just let me know and I'll help you walk through the process. That's all I have. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, just real quick, on page 33 of your town report in the select board's report, you'll see a mention of a community visit that we're hoping to have this summer. It's organized by the Vermont Council on Rural Development. Some of you may be familiar with the process. They've done about 85 of these community visits since 1996, I think, and the most recent one in our area was in Londonderry about 3 years ago, and I think about 12 years ago there was also one in Manchester. Essentially what it is a kind of it's a three-part series of meetings where all the people in town can come together. The first meeting is a community dinner plus meeting. It'll be held right here in this room here. And the idea is to simply kind of get us all together and talk about the town, talk about what we like about the town, what we think might be something we can work on to improve. I mean, housing was mentioned earlier. That might be one area we could think about. But basically, it's an opportunity for us all to kind of come together and see what areas of the town we feel are fine, just the way they are right now, and what areas maybe we can work together to make it better. It's an interesting point in the town's history, I think. In the 2020 census, we crossed the 1,000 mark in terms of town population for the first time ever since 1761. We have a lot of new neighbors here that have arrived, and it just seemed like a good moment to, have something like this where we can meet, talk, and have a series of meetings, set up some committees, and work through the summer to see, how we can make that all happen. So I just wanted to point that out because you'll be getting some postcards in your mailboxes at some point later in the spring. When we have a definite date for that community dinner and town meeting. So I hope as many of you as possible can, plan to come and, meet new neighbors and old neighbors. And I think it'd be an interesting experience for us all. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you all very much.
Anything else? Dixie?
Just a lot of towns around Vermont have a potluck dinner when they have their town meeting. I didn't know if that would be something interesting to anybody here. We have about 4% of our population of the town here tonight. I wouldn't mind seeing 5% or 10% or more. And I think in conjunction with what Andrew just said, if we get people together, eating is a good way to start communicating and talking to your neighbors and meeting people that maybe live near you but you don't really know well. But anyway, I don't know, just throwing it out there, would that be something interesting if we figured a potluck for the next town meeting? All right, we'll look into that, thank you.
Anything else? I want to remind you all that voting will take place between 10 and 7 tomorrow at the town office. And if there's no further business, can someone make a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Joe and Marie seconds. So moved.